So in the second stage of the path, we're working with the awareness stage. The awareness stage is associated with the element air. And remember, the element air is our mental body. Is that okay? Yeah, all right. So on the pentagram, we moved down to fire, and then we moved up to air right here. So the path is this path right here. It's this section. So we've hit the fire element. We've initiated our awakening stage. We've started to learn how to heal our spiritual body. And so now it's time to start applying that to learn how to heal our mental body. So we start taking action, so that we can learn how to heal our mental body. I swear it's the angels doing it to mess with me or something. So this stage is really about becoming aware of the mechanics of the higher power. So in the first stage, in the fire stage, we become awakened to a higher power, but now in this stage, we're actually learning about the mechanics of it. We're learning how we create our reality. You know, some of the, I'll get into it later. So I was going to tell you something a little bit too early. So it's really a process of self-awareness, but again, it's self-awareness with a big S, not a little s. Self-awareness as in the awareness of the inner self, of the authentic self, of the true self, not the false self that we've been creating since we were children. For me, this stage really ramped up as I started working with Rich Litvin's team of coaches, where I started recognizing, holy shit, by changing how I think, it's not a progressive change where I'll see the difference over time. It was happening rapidly. In one conversation with one of those coaches, my income tripled. I'm not joking. My income tripled. My coach made me repeat the same phrase 1,000 times in 48 hours. And within a couple of days, I manifested $5,000 just like that, as if it was like magic. And I started realizing the power of learning how to change our mind. And I needed to learn more. This stage is, like I said, ruled by the element air. And in the shamanic warrior, Aniel, the character, is trained by the wisdom keeper. The wisdom keeper in the Hebrew system is Archangel Raphael. It's also the god Hermes, the god Mercury, Thoth or Thoth in the Egyptian systems. It's Enoch again in the Hebrew systems as well. Enki, Merlin, lots of other characters. Archangel Raphael, or as I like to call it, the wisdom keeper. And so he's learning how to actually practice magic. He's learning how to change his subconscious reprogramming or subconscious programming in the story. He's learning how to solve puzzles. He's learning how to read esoteric wisdom. He's in the pilgrimage in the first book. He learns about the ancient cycles, the 26,000 year cycle. He learns about the ancient flood that happened about 11,500 years ago. He learns about the ancient civilizations that existed on our planet that create the foundation for our civilization today. He learns about all this kind of stuff. He learns that, like what I mentioned in the first video, or in the path, the introduction video, he learns that 75% of our core beliefs come from our first 12 years of being alive, and that 40 to 95% of our decisions are based on those beliefs. Unconsciously. In other words, the majority of our life, up to 95% of our life, is autopilot. It's like we're just drones for the Matrix, doing whatever our parents told us to do, whatever society told us to do, so that we can fit in and get love. And then we wake up all of a sudden in the awakening stage and we realize, holy shit, that's not creating happiness for us. So now we're learning why we're creating our suffering. We're learning how our mind, how our beliefs, how our thoughts, how our words, and our behavior are actually creating the reality around us. We're not necessarily healing them all right here, but we're starting the process. We're learning how to heal those beliefs. We're learning the systems that are necessary for this deeper healing, because we're studying them like crazy and we're interested in this stuff, and our interest just becomes natural. We start studying things like esoteric wisdom or quantum science. We start showing up, that these things start showing up to us more abundantly. Teachers come into our life, opportunities come into our life, webinars, maybe articles, synchronicities, memes on Facebook, whatever. Maybe someday people will look at this video and be like, what's Facebook? Wouldn't that be nice? Maybe not though. I mean, Facebook's valuable too. We start to realize that we don't know what we don't know. That there's so much more to the universe than we realize. And we almost feel like small children because it's so big. In the book, in the story, Aniel learns about the Great Year, the flood, the ancient people. He learns that our words are our magic spells. This is so important. Words are spells. Sentences are spells, like magic spells. Our habits, having a drink after work, eating every time we get a new client. This was one of my old food addiction patterns. Every time I'd get a bunch of money, I'd end up for a week spending it all on food, because as a kid, I associated abundance of money with eating a bunch of food, because when we were kids, we didn't have a lot of food, and we didn't have a lot of junk food, and when we got money every once in a while, we'd have junk food, so it was just an unconscious habit. Our habits are our rituals that we're performing to create the life that we want, and life is the ceremony. When we practice a ceremony, we're practicing a version of this in the microcosm. So we're going into the room, or into the temple, or into the yard, or wherever we're doing our ceremony. We're creating a ceremony using whatever type of rituals or practices we do. We're saying certain words to invoke prayers or invoke energies or whatever, and then we perform a ceremony. The ceremony is a microcosm, or a small reflection of what we want the world to look like when we're finished. So it's like a microcosm to the macrocosm. And that's what we're doing on a big level every day with our words, our habits, and our behavior. And this is all the stuff that Aniel is learning in his apprenticeship. He learns that the universe is a holographic matrix, that we're creating it all. He learns that he is the only thing in his reality. Let me say it again. He learns that he is the only thing in his reality. Our ego does not want to accept this. Your ego doesn't want to accept that Ricky Goodall doesn't exist, that you just created me for your own process of growth and evolution. But this is what the ancients say. This is what Mother Ayahuasca has told me. This is what's written in all the esoteric texts, like the Hermetics and stuff like alchemy and Kabbalah and all of this kind of stuff says this. Quantum science is even starting to say it. But our ego doesn't like that because it makes us feel really alone. But we're not alone. We'll never experience that. Only in our imagination. We can't really be alone. We're never alone because we are part of everything that there is. Whether it's your cat or your dog or your brother or your sister, your mother, your father, or strangers in the street, they are also you, so you'll never really be alone. He learns that our bodies are quantum bio supercomputers that project into the holographic matrix. And he learns that our 5 elemental bodies are like lenses, or our 4 elemental bodies, air, fire, water, earth, are like lenses that our astral body or our consciousness projects reality through. So our consciousness projects a pure light that's then interpreted by the 4 lenses, the 4 elemental bodies, and then creates a reality based on the pain and the beliefs and the programs that are stored in the 4 elemental bodies, and then that reality then creates an experience back to us. And so this is the kind of stuff that he learns in this story. He learns that consciousness, or our higher self, is the pilot to this body, but the body's kind of like running on autopilot from all of the programs and viruses that are stored on it. So the higher self is like kind of like riding a wild bull, trying to get it to calm down, or a wild horse, trying to tame it to the point where it can integrate with it and we can become one. In the story, he's learning how to invoke divine wisdom. So remember in the last video I said divine courage. This time he's learning to invoke divine wisdom. He's learning how to connect to his higher self and ask it for information. It's a different language. We don't ask the higher self to speak to us through words. The higher self typically speaks to me, at least, and people I've worked with, through images and through impulses, through flashes, through flash images and impulses. It's not always a word. Sometimes it's an image of a word, but it's not the same as the ego or the mental mind talking to us. So he learns how to invoke divine wisdom through silence. He learns that the truth can be found in the silence of the mind. The truth can be found in the silence of the mind. So in this stage, we start becoming aware of the deeper spiritual truths. We start becoming aware of it doesn't have to be ancient if it's consistent. It can be timeless. It can be 20 years old. You find out that it's rooted in 10,000 years ago, whatever. It's a consistent wisdom. Consistent wisdom, we start becoming aware of it. We start becoming aware of how our thought patterns and our belief patterns, especially our negative self-talk and our degenerative language, are aligning with these spiritual truths and creating realities that we don't want. We start really learning about how this stuff works. We become aware of how we are creating our own suffering and the actual mechanics of it. but then sometimes we still can't change it because it happens unconsciously a lot of times, which is about what the next stage is about. We become aware of how we are creating our conscious and unconscious suffering. And the purpose of this stage is really to become aware of our true self or our authentic self or our higher self, and then train our mental body to resonate with that self by learning how to heal our beliefs, learning how to heal where our thoughts come from, learning how our thoughts and how all this kind of stuff creates our reality, learning the mechanics of it, the esoteric forms of wisdom, and how they actually apply to creating our reality. As you can imagine, this stage goes forever, but it gets to a point where you eventually learn how to heal yourself, and that's when you move into the next stage, the acceptance stage, where you actually start to heal yourself. So this stage is a big one. I mean, I spent years in this stage really, and have read dozens of books and have really dove into this. And I had a lot of time to do that. I'm an entrepreneur. I kind of create my own schedule. I've had a lot of time to dive into this kind of stuff and to learn more about it. But you got to go at your own pace. Every little bit counts, even if it's just one book that you read once a week or something in the beginning. That's fine. If you really want to start cleaning your mental body, the first thing is that if you're on any kind of prescription drugs like antidepressants, anti-anxieties, SSRIs, I can't suggest that you get off of those because I'm not a doctor, but those things can be challenging in the long run. In the beginning, they're important. I was on antidepressants for a number of years when I was younger. They were very valuable during that time. I grew out of them and I came off of them. If your goal isn't to eventually come off of them, that's fine. You could still move very far along this path, but I wouldn't suggest using any plant medicines or anything like that throughout the process. Cannabis maybe, but nothing else. The goal for me has always been to get off of any kind of medicines, get off of any kind of medications, especially prescription drugs, and to not need them anymore, because that opens us up to another level of spiritual growth. So if you really want to start cleaning and cleansing and upgrading your mental body, first thing to do, there's got to be somebody that you can work with. You learn from somebody, a guru, although I don't really resonate with that term all that much, a coach, like a high-level coach. Like look for a coach that you think makes far more money than you'll ever make or that you will make anytime soon, and email them and beg them to coach you. That's what I did with Rich Litvin. If you email me and beg me to coach you, I don't know what I'll do. I might not give you a one-on-one session, but I'll hook you up somehow. Find someone to coach you, have the courage to ask, have the humility to ask, and believe me, it will change your life. If you experience a deep coaching session, whether it's a group session or a one-on-one session, or even if you just watch somebody be deeply coached properly, you'll realize there's a whole lot more to reality than you realized, or than you were aware of. I said realize twice. Choose some spiritual system to study. It doesn't matter what it is. You can study this one. This one will point you in the path of a lot of others. You can study a different one. You can study Kabbalah. You can study alchemy. You can study Taoism, Hinduism, whatever you want. Study whatever system you want, but pick one and study it. Because by studying one, whatever one you're drawn to, and there aren't really one system, they all blend into each other, but primarily one, when you start to master one system or start to become fluent in it, the other systems will just open up to you. That's how I was able to achieve this. I really paid attention to high magic in the beginning. Then I started paying a lot of attention to alchemy and the Hebrew systems, Kabbalah, and then eventually Inca shamanism and the Hebrew alphabet and all of these different things I started studying, and they all just kind of come to me easier and easier and easier now, because I recognize the underlying language behind them all. There is a language behind them all. And it's mostly based on these elements, to be honest. Hermetics is the foundation of most of the work that I've studied. And in my opinion, most of the religious practices in the whole world came from Hermetics, which is believed to be channeled by the god or the force of nature known as Hermes, which is also the air element, represented by Archangel Raphael. Hermes, Archangel Raphael, Thoth, Enki, Merlin, these are all associations with one another. Not saying they're all the same being, because that's not quite true, but they're all associations of one another. If I was Jesus in a past life, or the guy that we call Jesus, and we both reach the same level of enlightenment, we're not going to be the same character, but we're going to be associated with the same level of intelligence or enlightenment. That's sort of what Hermes and Thoth and Archangel Raphael can be viewed as. They're similar characters that represent the same concepts, but have their own individual characteristics. But when you combine them all together, you get a broader understanding of the element or of the concept. I know it's deep stuff. If it's over your head, don't worry, someday it won't be. Study yoga. Yoga is really powerful for this kind of work. Meditation during this awareness stage, meditation is vital. You have to be aware of the thoughts going on in your head, have to be aware of what's going on in your world. If you're not meditating and creating space for yourself, it's hard to actually see these things because we're caught in the warp zone of the matrix, and it's hard to get out of it. I use the term the matrix because it's most valuable for our time. It works with our technology. It's not really a matrix, maybe it is, but I don't think it's really like a matrix. I think it's way more complicated than that, but I think it could be viewed or understood by using the term matrix. Esoteric stuff is all about symbols, guys and girls and people. It's all about symbols. It's all about symbolism. It's all about concepts representing massive ideas. Tiny ideas representing massive ideas. This is a tiny idea representing an astronomically massive idea that I will probably never be able to fully grasp because it's just too big. Study quantum science, really start to understand this stuff, start to understand behavioral psychology, esoterics, occultism, ancient human history, really valuable. If you want to look up an amazing author who can tell you so much about the ancient systems or the ancient technology and the ancient sites in the world, look up Brian Forster. He's on YouTube, he's got thousands of videos. He's gone to all of these sites multiple times. I've met him in Peru, went on a tour with him, shared my concepts and my theories with him about ancient human history, and he totally agreed. So Brian Forster is a great resource to start to learn about ancient human history. Daily breathing exercises are valuable. Air element is about our air, making sure we're breathing properly. I'm only starting to learn to breathe properly. I had diaphragmatic issues for most of my life without even knowing, not breathing fully, probably from trauma, probably from who knows what, and not fully breathing into my diaphragm. I'm learning how to fully breathe now. If we don't fully breathe, we're not getting all of the wisdom that the universe has to offer us. We're not getting all the relaxation that the universe has to offer us. When we breathe short or shallow or quick, we're telling our body that there's something wrong. When we breathe really deeply and exhale really slowly, we relax our vagus nerve, we relax our body, and we tell our body that everything's fine. Breathing is valuable. Breathing exercises every day, I suggest. Journaling, super valuable. Never really got into it all that much until the last couple of years, and it's been life-changing. Journaling allows me to express ideas in a much more complex and detailed and simple way in some cases than I would be able to just trying to think of it in my mind. By writing it out and journaling it, it makes way more sense to me. I also journal about my future, so I'll think about like a date in the future, it's October 1st, 2019, and all of the things I want to manifest by then in my life and the things I want to experience, and I'll write a journal entry as if it's then, and writing it with all the feelings that I'm going to have when I create the life that I want to create. And sometimes I'll do this on a new moon or during a magic ceremony or something, make it really powerful. And there have been a number of times where everything on the list has come true and even better than I expect. Practice puzzles, practice chess, practice things that make your mind work. Really have to make our mind work during this. I play a lot of music, writing music or learning music and so on, really makes your mind work. Solve puzzles, because life is just a bunch of puzzles. This universe, this game we're playing right now is just a bunch of puzzles that we need to solve. When we solve the puzzle of financial freedom, now we're free again. When we solve the puzzle of relationship freedom, when we solve the puzzle of health freedom, body freedom, movement freedom, expression freedom, whatever, when we solve these puzzles, we become more and more and more free. So it's just a bunch of puzzles. It's important to understand that, I think. And another thing that we really want to study, and I mean study it, what I was going to say is start studying magic. But when I say magic, I don't mean illusionists, and there's a lot of, and I say this with humility, and I don't mean any disrespect, but there's a lot of magic being taught or shared by people that haven't done the healing yet. And when you haven't done the healing, you see the world in a very different way. You see it in a very pessimistic way. For example, if anyone ever tells you something as fact, well, they've got more healing to do because they don't really understand that everything that they're experiencing is filtered through their own perceptions, their own biases. You shouldn't believe anything I say, you shouldn't believe anything anyone says. So if someone tells you something is a certain way, I would be questionable about that. So when studying magic, remember, question everything. Don't trust anything that you believe or that you read. And intention is all that matters in magic. It's all that really matters. Nothing else really matters more than intention, because intention will take you in the direction you need to go to. So study magic, but beware of the sources of your study. Don't believe anything that's scarcity-based. Don't believe anything that's fear-based. Don't believe anything that says you'll get in trouble if you do this, you'll get in trouble if you do that, because those are just opinions based on people's personal experiences and the lineage of teaching that they came from. I'm not saying they're not right. I'm saying question it. Question it. Just question it. It's important. The mantra for this section is the most important mantra I think that we can ever practice. It's I don't know what I don't know. Because ignorance is powerful. Ignorance can convince us that we know everything. Ignorance can convince us that we don't need to learn anything else. Because it's pride, right? It's combining itself with pride. So the opposite of ignorance is wisdom, and the opposite of pride is humility. And in this system, wisdom is represented by the element air, and humility is represented by the element earth. So they're part of this path. But in order to practice ignorance or wisdom and humility, we have to be humble, and we have to be wise, and we have to develop these skills inside of ourselves. And so I don't know what I don't know is valuable, because I catch myself even now saying things like they're fact or discounting other people's beliefs or other people's perspectives, but really it's from a place of ignorance. I don't know if what they're saying is true or not because I haven't had their experience. So I don't know what I don't know. And then finally, if you want to get a head start on this work, just start following this symbol. Study its origins. Don't believe anything you read. Study what it means. Study what it represents. And of course, study the pentagram as well. But again, don't believe anything you read. Try to read between the lines. There's a lot of crap out there. There's a lot of scary stuff out there. Stuff meant to be part of the video game, right? I mean, it's just all part of the video game. It's just meant to make it more interesting. It's a wrinkle to make the video game more entertaining. That's it. It's not meant to scare us. We don't need to ever be scared of anything. This work is really about becoming free of fear. Becoming fearless. Not fearless as in you don't have fear, but fearless as in fear has less power over you than it's ever had before. Become fearless. That's really what we're trying to achieve here. We're not trying to be free of our nervous system responding to triggers, because that's something that will happen over time. We're not trying to become free of challenges and struggles in our life because they're part of the video game. We're trying to become free of fear having its hold on us. So we're trying to become fearless. So just keep moving forward and keep studying this stuff. Keep an open mind. Remember, the purpose of this stage is to learn how to heal your mind. So if you don't know how to heal your mind, if you don't know how to reprogram your subconscious mind, if you don't know why beliefs are important, if you don't know why a lot of the stuff I shared with you is important in this video, that's the best place to start. If you do know that a lot of this stuff is important and you've already studied it and you just can't get to the next level, there's one thing that I can suggest that will be the most important. See a powerful coach, somebody that can help you learn how to reprogram your subconscious mind. I've invested from a place of debt, from a place of scarcity, from a place of not knowing where my money was going to come from. For 3 years, I invested 50 grand at least into my work in Peru with shamans and my work with coaches in California, including traveling to California and traveling to Peru multiple times. I didn't have any money for this stuff. I had lots of debt at the time. I didn't know where my money was going to come from. I didn't know how I was going to pay my bills yet. It all miraculously happened. Move forward, ask for help, because this stuff can't be done by ourselves. You don't know what you don't know. There's so much more out there than you realize. Life can change like that. And if you don't know how to do it and you think because you look at a coach, or I have this and they don't have that, or I'm living a better life than them, well, maybe they're not the coach for you. Find somebody that intimidates you. Find somebody that you look at and you're like, wow, I'm actually scared to be coached by that person because I'm worried about how powerful it's going to be. That's the kind of person you want to find. And besides that, in the meantime, I was going to save this for the next stage, but it really should start here. And that's see a good counselor or a good therapist and start that process now. I didn't start this process really until a year ago. I did most of this work with coaches and shamans, which is great, but a counselor or a therapist is somebody that's just going to listen. Remember, don't believe anything they say, don't believe in anything they tell you, don't trust anything they tell you. Let it inspire your own decisions inside of you. Listen to your own heart, listen to your own inner wisdom, and choose what works for you. But they're great to express to and to start that process. So see a counselor or a therapist. They can help you understand yourself better to a certain degree from a certain perspective, and it's valuable. If you can find a good spiritual counselor or spiritual therapist who's living an incredible life, that's important, right? Look at your healers. Look at your coaches. Look at your therapists. Look at your teachers. If they're not living the life that you want to live, then it's just like trusting the people in the first 12 years of your life. Why? Why would you trust them? And if there's an area of their life that you're modeling after that you particularly want to model your life after, then that's great. But if they're just somebody that holds himself at a high regard but hasn't really reached that healing or hasn't reached the lifestyle that you're looking to create in your life, they're not a good set for you probably. They're not a good fit at this point. Move on to somebody else. And I'm not saying that with any judgment. It's just that's how this work works. If you're not careful and you learn from people who aren't at where you're at or who have really strict ideas or are really attached to their identity or their ego as a healer or as a therapist or as a coach, they can pull you down more than they pull you up in some cases. And I've been that person in the past. I've been that coach in the past who just gives advice, tells people how to change their lives, tells people what they should do. I don't do that anymore. That's not how it works. I help them connect to their own higher self so that they can figure that stuff out all by themselves, even without me, preferably. So be careful who you work with, but keep yourself open, give everyone a chance, just question everything they say, create your own truth for yourself. Don't believe anyone, especially me. Don't believe me at all. I've got a million reasons why you shouldn't believe me, and you probably have heard some of them in these videos, and there are lots of reasons not to believe me, but prove me wrong. That's what I suggest instead. So this is the awareness stage, and I know in these videos, this is a 25-minute video, and you might be thinking, after all the videos you've watched so far, like, oh wow, this is a lot of information. I was up really for a week, up every night thinking about this stuff, sometimes till 1, 2 in the morning, writing notes about it, simplifying it. It's so complex. And if you really want to learn this stuff, it takes a lot of commitment to really fully grasp it. So what I'm offering you here is the most basic way of understanding the process to enlightenment once you're initiated. If you're not initiated, you're still going to go in this direction if you want to reach enlightenment, but it could look differently, or maybe you find an easier system or a system that resonates better with you and you dedicate to that. But regardless, whatever system you pick, even if it's meditating in a cave somewhere for a year, you're going to go through this process in that cave. You're going to go through the awakening stage, then you're going to go through the awareness stage, then you're going to go through the acceptance stage, then you're going to go through the alignment stage, then you're going to go through the ascension stage, and you're going to reach enlightenment. It's going to happen in some form or another during that process. It's just how we're made up. It's just how the universe is created. So whether you call it these stages or something else, doesn't matter. This is just a simplified way that I practice on my dad, and if he can understand it, then I know that it's being explained in a simple way. He's a great man. Beautiful man, very loving, very caring, very open-minded. Not a lot of education, so he gets intimidated sometimes by really complex ideas. This stuff makes sense to him, so I know I'm on the right path. The right path, get it? As a pun. I didn't mean it, but it was good. All right, so that's it for this stage. We're going to move on to the acceptance stage next. I'll see you in the next video. And as always, like I said in the last couple of videos, if you're not initiated yet, I highly suggest it. This is not a plug for me to try to promote. Well, it kind of is, a little bit, right? Because I'd rather it be me that initiates you, because that's my mission right now. But it doesn't matter. If you get initiated somewhere else or by somebody who totally disagrees with what I'm saying, that's fine too. It'll still work. Just get initiated. Do it for yourself. It's a life-changing experience. Even if it seems like nothing happened, your life will start to change in massive ways, and momentum will be created, and you'll all of a sudden be seeing your life from another perspective. Like the life I live now is it's miraculous compared to what I've experienced in my past. I know that I'm only young and I got lots of life left. So there's going to be a lot of experiences ahead of me. Thank you for watching so far. I'll see you in the next video, and begin your awareness stage, connect to the element air, connect to your wisdom keeper inside of you, and start to integrate that part of you, and you'll be unstoppable, I promise. Okay, see you soon.